they just do not get it. With the San Antonio Spurs poised to take a big leap this season, ESPN has recently shown so little respect to multiple Spurs guards that it has Spurs fans absolutely fired up with Mitch Johnson looking to get this team into the playoffs next season. But it's not just that today. We have another article that came out very recently that highlights an interesting snag in the Jeremy Sochan contract talks. We got the contract talks. We got ESPN's recent article, a bunch of big stuff coming up on this episode of Spurs Digest. And you know what? Let's start with Jeremy Sochan, because look, we all know he needs a contract, and we're looking at the Spurs payroll. There's a big blank area next to Jeremy Sochan. We've talked about that at length, so I'm not going to say, oh, look, he needs a contract. For those of you who need the backstory, yeah, he needs a contract. There it is. That's all it is. Let's dive into what we saw in an article recently from Air Alamo, and it was Calderette who wrote it. I've linked it down below. Go check it out if you want, but there was one excerpt from it that I wanted to dive into, because the big question with Sochan has been, how much, right? We know what's going to happen. How much? How long? Let's take a look at what Cal had to say, because I think it's pretty interesting. He said generally $20 million a season is the going rate for an average starter. Now, that's, give or take. It's not always necessarily the case, but I think it's a reasonable baseline, but there's a few other factors that I want to get into in a minute. Let's go ahead. So if that's the going rate for an average starter, Sochan isn't one. Anyway, I got some things to talk about there. But so that should be out of the question for the Spurs. Still, given he's an elite perimeter defender and a dramatically improved rebounder and finisher, that makes him better than a typical backup for. So the idea then kind of went on in the article saying, at that point, what about, you can go anywhere between like maybe the 15 and 20 million range, or maybe even lower, but with some incentives if you make, say, an all defense team or some kind of accolade on that front. Because Jeremy Sochan, I wonder what we'd peg as an average starter. Because to me, I think with guys this young, I don't think the contract is ever as much about what is he right now as it is what will he be by maybe the end of this contract. And that's where Jeremy Sochan and his camp will be coming from, right? So you have to imagine Sochan and his camp are saying, like, we are definitely going to be more than an average starter in 2-3 years from now. Look at his defense. Look at how well he played in the stretches where he wasn't that hurt this season. He is a great player. He is versatile. The big problem is that he doesn't have the shooting, and we know that's a need for San Antonio. And the question for San Antonio is, how will he fit longer term as Victor Wembanyama's running mate in the front court if we're going to pay him like a starter? So I get that there's some back and forth here, right? And again, looking at the Spurs, we do have some money to spend. Now, if some of these mock trades, like ones for Lowry Markkanen, never come true, throw all that out the window, because guess what? We're not going to be able to afford everyone. Luckily, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. Though who really knows? I mean, there's a lot of pretty crazy talks going on in that front. But, back to Jeremy Sochan, right? Like, I do have him starting this season. I know Harrison Barnes is the popular choice, and I know that does make sense from a spacing standpoint, from a team flow standpoint. Again, we'll see when it comes to training camp, preseason, that kind of stuff. It wouldn't shock me if Barnes started. But I do think Jeremy Sochan showed so much promise, especially as an off-ball cutter. I still find that very, very interesting when he was running with a guy like Wemby. And I still think Sochan, under the right circumstances, could be like a very interesting P&R option as like even a ball handler under certain circumstances, never as the primary guy. But there's some interesting versatility with Jeremy Sochan's game. So if we go back here, and we say, he's an elite perimeter defender, dramatically improved rebounder and finisher, that makes him better than a typical backup for. So I would tend to agree, right? When it comes to Sochan, the question is, how do you evaluate him? I think a 4-year deal is something everyone wants. It gives him contract security. The Spurs want to lock up a guy like him who has shown so much promise with the Spurs during especially these couple of years where Wemby is still on his lower rookie deal. Well, really, there'd only be 1 year of the extension that overlaps with it, but still, like, Sochan's a very valuable piece to have, especially if it's on a nice, smaller deal. If a day comes where trading him does make sense, it'd be an easily tradable contract. So, in your mind, what is the number for Jeremy Sochan? For me, I tend to agree between 17.5 and 20 for a couple reasons. I think Jeremy Sochan's camp's going to say, look at how good we've been while being hurt, and like even just these few seasons, like 12 points a game, we're a good rebounder, we're a great defender. You really don't see us as like a starter caliber guy. I think 20 million is reasonable, whereas the Spurs might say maybe closer to 15. Sochan's camp will say the cap is rising. We want to get ahead of this. We want to get our payday. So there's a few things there. Spurs culture might just come out on top like it often does. Hey, we get a little bit of a discount, but I would expect, I think the article's actually pretty bang on, something between 17.5 and 22.5 with some incentives for some kind of defensive accolade, or maybe some numbers he got to hit, like steals and blocks. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, because this is something that it's going to be a subject until the day he signs, which might not be anytime soon, but I know it's a very interesting topic. Leave your thoughts down below. But now it's time to get into the main event of this video, because if you guys haven't seen ESPN, they've started their annual rankings. And look, I'm going to caveat this by saying, like, I think we all know a lot of this is kind of just to drive engagement, which, hey, let's be honest, it's working, because I love talking about lists like this. I love talking about Spurs getting respected, disrespected. But I mean, like, we just got to start here. Like, what is this? You know, of the top 100 players, they've ranked number 100 to 51. I've linked it down below. Go check it out. They have Stephon Castle at 99th. Now, I can't show you every player that's listed above him for obvious reasons. That would take forever, and there'd be no reason to do a full video on that. However, 99th to me for the Rookie of the Year, who is an unbelievable defender. They even say, like Michael C. Wright, who wrote the piece on Stephon Castle here, said, Castle started 47 games as a rookie. He led his draft class in total points, 1,190, made 423 field goals to lead the class, and led him in steals with 74. The runner-up in the slam dunk contest, Castle is San Antonio's stickiest perimeter defender. Really, that's the only thing I care about here when we're talking about ranking the player. I can't say that. I could say that on YouTube. I'm not going to. I don't care if you come second in the slam dunk contest when it comes to ranking you as a player. I think it's awesome that he did. I enjoyed watching him dunk the ball. I think you understand where I'm coming from. And Stephon Castle, of course, is a phenomenal player. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, he needs to improve his efficiency, his three-point shooting. That is a pretty big issue, but he's an unreal defender. He won Rookie of the Year. He started 47 games. He had, I think, 26 different 20-point games, averaged 15, 4, and 4, then looking just to get even better next year. He had some pretty darn good games down the stretch. He's going to take a nice leap in the sophomore season, at least I think. And I mean, look, we'll have to see how he fits with De'Aaron Fox, sure, but like 99th, like, I have a problem with this mainly because there's a certain guy a little later that is ranked a full 11 spots higher than him, and Zach Edey. Like, I get it. I get what they're saying. Maybe they're projecting what they're going to do for this upcoming season, maybe because they have these fantasy projections below. Like, could Zach Edey be more valuable in a fantasy sense? Maybe because of the blocks he gets and the high field goal percentage, even if it's on lower volume. I still think Stephon Castle is a more valuable player. But it's not just him, right? Also, Devin Vassell, like 94th. This one, I suppose I get more. But, like, again, they kind of just talk about it like, look, he took a step back offensively. And they said he was hurt. We know he was hurt. Like, that's kind of the reason. But he dropped a season-high 37 points in a March victory over Brooklyn. I don't care about one-game stats. But, like, he put together 4 games with 4 steals. Inconsistency is the defining characteristic, who has the potential to be a solid two-way player, third or fourth option. And that's the thing. Like, I guess with Vassell, it makes more sense. It's like the potential's there. He couldn't quite put it together. But I can't help but look at this. And again, go look at the list for yourself. Because if I just start rattling off names and I think these guys are better than, you're going to have people from all different places come and say, oh, well, but is he really better than this? I'm not interested in doing a one-on-one argument, this player versus that player, all the way down the list. Do I think that Stephon Castle is more valuable at this moment than Zach Edey? Yeah, I do. I think Vassell is as well. Is that how ESPN does it? I don't really know. But there's other guys too, like even Nickeil Alexander-Walker ranked exactly between Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell. I think he's a great player. I think Atlanta really made a great move in bringing him in. But he averaged 9.4 points last year. Yeah, he's a good defender and he can shoot the 3-ball, but he averaged 9 points a game. Like, he's valuable. It was great. Their backcourt defense is going to be unreal with him and Dyson Daniels. But, like, really? Like, better than Stephon Castle? This is what I'm saying. Like, they don't get it. I don't think they get it. Like, I think the San Antonio Spurs have become a Wemby-centric thing for the media, as it should. I mean, this dude's going to be one of the greatest of all time. But when it comes to the Spurs, there's been so much hate on De'Aaron Fox. There's a lot of people thinking the Spurs are going to be, like, I see this narrative that they're going to be worse than people expect this year, which I just don't see happening. And now we're seeing this, like, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, 99th and 94th, respectively, in these rankings. And I'm just like, that's okay. Like, as Spurs fans, like, maybe you think that's fair, and I think that's okay. But look, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a homer. I'm biased. I think they both should be higher. Now, it's yet to be seen where we have De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama on this list. But, like, at the same time, I think these guys deserve better. But leave your thoughts down below, because maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just too much of a homer. But, you know, I don't care. I'm backing my boys. If I see them anywhere, I'm probably going to say they should be higher. But let's be honest. Take a look at the list for yourself. I think Castle should at least be higher than Alexander Walker and Zach Edey. I get Alexander Walker was on a good playoff team in the Timberwolves, and he was valuable for that team, and that carries value. But to me, like, if I'm looking at the player I would want on my team tomorrow, It's probably Stephon Castle. But anyway, leave your thoughts down below. I could go on about this for ages. That'll do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. And hey, look, if you made it this long in the video, that means you're a real one. You are a real big fan of Spurs Digest. And, to show the appreciation for a lot of our realest fans, like our most loyal ones, we know who you are. We just launched channel memberships. We're going to be getting live streams back on the go. Channel memberships, they give you priority response to comments, to chats in live streams. You get custom emotes. We got Coach Pop, we got Wemby, we got a few others, and even higher tiers let you access members-only videos and even some chats with myself, Keenan Bryant. So there's a lot of good perks. Check it out for yourself. There's a link in the community tab of this channel. Thank you so much for tuning in right to the end. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.